Alrighty, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. It's all going to be baseball, whether if it's the Indians, MLB, standings, all that stuff, stats, anything, especially the All-Star Game. And with the All-Star Game coming here to the beautiful city of Cleveland, I got to talk a lot about it. We got a lot of stuff to talk about in such a short time. The Tommy Maroon Sports Show starts right now. And it's going to kick off with the Cleveland Indians. We're going to have an update on the Indians. As you see Leonis Martin on your screen, who was designated for assignment now, but he ripped a double in that game in the Big Ohio Cup. We would end up splitting the series with our one victory coming here as Oscar Mercado, who I gotta admit, he should win Rookie of the Year. Who's heard of Vlad Guerrero Jr., Austin Meadows, who, though they may be winning that Rookie of the Year award, I think Oscar should. He's batting around the 300 mark. He's a great contact hitter. He's now we're center field with Leonis trying to find a new home. That was really his first career-defining moment. He's just been something. And the Indians, who have just seemed to struggle all season long up to this point, on that, this really seems to be their time. They're battling for that wild card. They got to win that AL Central maybe and make a great comeback and make the Twins look like the biggest collapse since the 2007 Mets. And oh boy, wasn't that embarrassing. But yeah, the batting is really coming alive. You got Roberto Perez. Robbie's doing a great job hitting home runs all June. Francisco Lindor doing Francisco Lindor things. Carlos Santana, the All-Star. So yes, here's to Carlos. Jake Bauers hit for a cycle last week against the Tigers. And in case you don't know, the Indians are 8-1 against Detroit this season. That's saying something when you can really defeat your central foes. Excuse me on that. Just a bit of a stutter. But really, if you can beat your division rivals, you can surely win that division. And hopefully Minnesota can sort of fall apart, which would allow us to do good. And of course, the pitching. Carl Willis and Terry Francona have done great jobs with the pitching. Everybody's on the injured list for the pitching. And the bullpen entered this year looking pretty rusty. But now this year, the bullpen's been incredible. Brad Hand has pretty much been the glue that the bullpen has needed all season long. And we're really glad to have him. We're glad that we traded him last year. Trade to get him last year. And of course, despite so many holes, we find so many ways. Aaron Savali, Zach Plesac, Shane Bieber, Trevor Bauer. The rotation sort of looks like a mess, but just the way Tito does it's pretty incredible. Of course, the injured list is made up of a bunch of pitchers. Mike Clevenger, when he was in Texas, his first start back, he rolls his ankle. 10 days for him. Carlos Carrasco, non-baseball condition, 10 days for him. Jeffrey Rodriguez, who was with us for a little bit, he's also on the injured list. And of course, one of our best pitchers we have had in like 10 years, Corey Kluber, is also on the IL after a line drive against Miami. Hit off his arm, which got hurt. So hopefully they will all get better, and hopefully they'll take us to the playoffs because we got to win that division. We got to do it. It'd be our 4th year in a row. And I believe it would be the 11th time we do so, which is more than any other team in the American League Central. And speaking of the American League Central, let's advance to the Major League Baseball. Of course, the standings first. In the American League East, the Yankees are sort of trying to run away from the Tampa Bay Rays, but that's going to be fun. We'll see who wins that. The AL Central Twins are running away with it, and with most of us being Indians fans, this is a little scary, and one can only hope we can catch up. And the West Houston Astros are just blazing ahead against all their teams. Oakland, Texas, Anaheim, Seattle, Seattle, as usual, gets off to a great start. And they do vintage Mariners things and choke on their own spit. As the second wild card, you got the Indians, Red Sox, Rangers, and even Oakland. But so far, Cleveland's winning that second wild card. They will most likely play Tampa or New York. We'll see what happens. In the National League East, the Braves are winning that. In the Central, it's going to be close between the Cubbies and Brewers. The West, the Dodgers, who just hit 3 walk-offs with 3 different rookies this weekend against the Rockies at Dodger Stadium. One of the best in all baseball. I think we can all agree with that. After all, it will be hosting the All-Star game next year. But still, that's pretty crazy to think. The Dodgers have so many rookies, and that's really good for the farm system, as they should be able to three-peat the National League. It would be the first time that any team has three-peated their respective league since the Yankees did in 1998 to 2001, which was a four-peat, of course, but you have to have that three-peat to go along with it. And in the wild card, you got the Rockies, who really took a big beating to the Dodgers. You got the Phillies with a struggling Bryce Harper, and the Cardinals, who are looking to really get over the edge. But that National League Central should be fun because every team sort of has a case. Even the Reds and the Pirates do. And speaking of those teams, let's advance to our big surprises throughout the 2019 season. Of course, we got 2 unexpected Cy Young candidates. One of them right there, Lucas Giolito for the Chicago White Sox, who has really stepped up to become their ace. And for the Minnesota Twins, they've also had somebody really step up and become their ace, Jake Odorizzi, if we can. Yep, there's a picture of him. Not anybody's fault there. But still, really good. He has been so good all season for Minnesota. A part of that team that's been such a big surprise, whether if it's Jorge Polanco, who has been the big go-getter for votes in the All-Star game, and so much more. Nelson Cruz, and there's Pete Alonso for the New York Mets. Rookie of the Year for sure, definitely. He's got 27 long balls. That is crazy to think. In fact, he just set the Mets record for most home runs by a rookie in a single season. And we're not even to the All-Star break, as Darryl Strawberry, the former record holder, congratulated him on that. Of course, so many more surprises like Josh Bell for Pittsburgh and Tim Anderson. Not to brag, I have those 2 teams on my fantasy team. I've been doing so great with them. So, yeah, it's really good to have those teams. And, of course, trade deadline, Trevor Bauer for the Cleveland Indians. There's so many rumors about him. He may leave. We'll see what happens. And, of course, Max Scherzer, who pitched with a broken nose and black eyes and was dominant in his first start back. But the Yankees said they're going to do, quote, whatever it takes to get Max Scherzer. So we'll see if they'll be able to do so or not. Of course, we got the All-Star voting. The Astros, Braves, and Cubs all led every team with 7 people. The Indians only had 1, just Carlos Santana. To me, I'm a little sad that, of course, Francisco Lindor didn't do it. But you know what? I guess he was hurt for the first month. Bit of a shame. But you know what? Had he never been hurt, he probably would be there in the top 3. And I believe tomorrow is when we can all start to vote for whomever gets to start. Only 20-some hours, like 28 hours, I believe is what they said. 28, yes. Tomorrow and Thursday. So tomorrow at 12 to Thursday at 4 should be fun to see that. And I'm a little surprised to see some guys like Jose Altuve there, though Altuve hit only 250. I mean, again, he's a household name. Same thing with Aaron Judge, who is batting 253. Was hurt for 2 months and makes it to the All-Star game. I mean, sure, they may be able to put up fireworks and stuff, but to me, it's a big mystery to why they're even there. I mean, when you get hurt, I mean, it's not your fault, but still a little weird. The Braves, of course, they had guys like Ronald Acuna make it, as they have called down Mike Foltynewicz, last year's big ace for them. And the Cubs, they've got guys like Javi Baez, El Mago is his nickname, one of the best in all of baseball. He does it really well. And, of course, big news with the Tampa Bay Rays. They have been given permission by the Major League Baseball to play games in Montreal. So in case you don't know, the Expos were a baseball team that played in Montreal from 1969, a part of the 4 teams to expand that year, along with Kansas City, San Diego, and the Seattle Pirates, now the Milwaukee Brewers. Up to 2004, after completely dead attendance, but once they packed their bags to head to our nation's capital and become the Washington Nationals, it seems like their popularity has really grown. And maybe we'll see more games there at Le Stade Olympique, or in English, Olympic Stadium. Of course, the big news for the Indians is that we got the All-Star game. That's going to be so much fun. And the All-Star game all started off, I guess, a bit of a prototypical one. You see the box score of the Eddie Jost benefit game, which some fans and baseball experts would say that could be a bit of the earliest version of the All-Star game. That game ended up being a 3-3 tie, sort of like the 2002 All-Star game. But then the All-Star game in reality, though that was a benefit game, the real All-Star game was in 1933 when the Chicago White Sox hosted it at Old Comiskey Park. And to honor their 50th anniversary of the All-Star game, they hosted again in 1983. And the 70th anniversary, New Comiskey Park hosted it in 2003. And 1935 All-Star game, the American League was able to beat the National League 4-1. There was no MVP that year. And why do I mention 1935? Well, that was the first time Cleveland ever hosted it. It would be the first of 6 times, I believe, they would host it. 1954, you had that All-Star game. Quite a rout for both teams. High-scoring ball game, 11-9, as the junior circuit was able to beat the National League. And in 1963, as we have quite a few pictures with one of them being that, the National League was able to beat the American League. Look at those tickets. Pretty cool that you guys see that. And the media guide, 5-3 National League with Willie Mays walking home with the All-Star Game MVP honors. The All-Star Game MVP was pretty new that year, 1981. After the strike-shortened season that split the season in half, I ought to say, we finally had the All-Star Game on August the 9th. As you see, Hall of Famer, I believe that's Jack Morris on the hill for them, for the American League. However, the American League would go on to lose, or beat the National League, would go on to win the American League. What am I saying? 5-4 with Hall of Fame catcher, the Expos, Gary Carr winning MVP. Of course, 1981, a very special year for Montreal Expos fans. Of course, Game 5, Rick Monday cranked a home run into center that ended up costing Montreal a shot at the World Series. That would have been their first and only World Series appearance, no matter where they were, whether if it's in Montreal or Washington. And, of course, the 1981 NLDS was the only time they ever won a postseason series. And, of course, 1997. We all know what happened here in 1997. Sandy Alomar Jr. cranks one into left center, giving the American League a 2-run shot and a 3-1 lead. It would be the difference maker. That was the final score, 3-1, as Sandy Alomar Jr. became the first player in the history of the All-Star Game to win MVP at home. There's his brother, Robbie Alomar. They were teammates from 1999 to 2000. And, of course, that was a very special year for Sandy, who is now the first base coach for us. Because in 1997, ALDS had a game-tying homer in Game 4 as we were 4 outs away from losing to the defending champion New York Yankees. And an 86-75 record. But despite that, a crazy dream Cinderella season that sadly came to an end with the Marlins. So Sandy Alomar Jr. famously cranked that home run over the mini monster left center. Now, here's a trivia question for you folks. Who surrendered that 2-run shot to Sandy Alomar Jr. in the 1997 All-Star Game? Got an answer? Because I'm going to reveal it next week. So try to think it through. Try to think of all the guys that you remember were at the All-Star Game. Maybe you were at the game and you remember. We'll see. I guess that will wrap things up. So make sure you answer that trivia question inside your head. And you'll see if you're right or not next week. As that's it for this week. Once again, this is Tommy Maroon here signing off. And I can't wait to see you next week. See you then.